Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is finally here and I am depressed. I really am. I was so excited to see this movie for many reasons. I was excited because I had a little bit of hope with this Godzilla movie, and also I'm a big fan of the director Michael Dougherty's work with Trick or Treat and Krampus, which is why it is so painful to say that this film was so disappointingly bad. You guys have no idea how disappointed I am in this film and how hard it is to say that I hated this movie. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for my opinion here and what I'm about to say, but I don't care. I was actually excited for this movie. I was rooting for it. I wanted this movie to succeed more than anything. The original 1954 Godzilla movie is still my favorite Godzilla movie. No other Godzilla movie has come close to replicating what made the original so iconic. Yes, it is a B-grade monster flick, but there is a seriousness to that film. It's smartly written, it has smart characters with a timely subtext. It's the only Godzilla movie I can actually say is good. Every other Godzilla movie that's come out after that has been dumb fun monster movie shenanigans, and they all completely forget what made the original work. The only other Godzilla movie that has come close to replicating what made the original work and what made it so iconic was the 2014 version. And I'm not saying it's a good movie, I'm just saying I appreciated what Gareth Edwards tried to do. And at least he attempted at a story and characters. And for all of the people that criticized the 2014 Godzilla movie, saying it's called Godzilla and yet there's not much Godzilla in it, is a stupid criticism. And here's why. Every Godzilla movie that has come out over the past 60 years has had a total of 23 minutes or less of Godzilla screen time in an hour and a half to 2 hour movie. They focus more on the human characters. Look at the original Godzilla movie, look at Jaws or even Jurassic Park. Those movies have a title that hint at a creature that you really want to see, and yet all of those movies focus heavily on the human characters. In Jaws, we don't see the shark until the hour and 22-minute mark in a 2-hour movie. We don't get into any of the dinosaur action in Jurassic Park until the hour mark, and it's because they're building up all of these characters first. The original Godzilla movie goes for an hour and 35 minutes, I'm pretty sure, or 36 minutes. And that movie has a total of 9 minutes of Godzilla screen time. So that criticism that a movie is called Godzilla and doesn't have much Godzilla in it is a stupid criticism. A better criticism is to say that the movie has characters that are not fleshed out that much, and so it felt like the plot was just dragging along until we got to the third act where Godzilla finally had a showdown. That's a better criticism than just saying, it's called Godzilla and there's not much Godzilla. But now the studio have heard these people and have delivered a sequel that has doubled up on the action and doubled up on Godzilla. But in doing so, since they still have to have human characters within the mix, they are less focused on those human characters and less focused on the story. So they've delivered terribly boring characters in a terribly written story. The plot of this movie is so lazy and so sloppy. It just feels like they came up with the plot on the spot while they were filming, and they just went with whatever they came up with on the spot. The movie is literally action scenes and monster introductions that are heavily, I mean heavily, linked together by big chunks of boring one-dimensional characters that blurt out exposition every minute, making dumb decisions that make no sense in retrospect, only to get the monsters battling. That's it. That's all that this movie is. And I know people go into these movies only for the dumb fun monster action, which is fair, and if you go into this movie expecting that, then you'll probably enjoy it. If you're one of those people that complained about the 2014 Godzilla movie, saying that it didn't have much Godzilla in it or monster battles, then you'll probably be satisfied with this sequel because there's a lot more in it. But for me, I need an actual story, I need actual characters and not just action to satisfy me. But even then, the action scenes in this sequel aren't that good, which is so disappointing. Besides a few fun moments in the climactic fight, I found the action scenes in this sequel to be either boring or just a little bit frustrating at times. The reason why I thought that the action scenes were pretty boring was because whenever I got to those action scenes, I was already tired and exhausted out of my mind. I had to suffer 20 to 30 minutes of boring one-dimensional characters blurting out a ridiculous amount of exposition beforehand. And the reason why I thought that some of the action was a little bit frustrating to watch at times is because I never felt like I got the full effect of the action scenes. Like, there's some pretty sloppy camera work and some pretty choppy editing with some poorly dim lit shots and an overuse of cloudy and smoky visual effects. And it made it hard to see what was actually fully going on in those scenes. You do get glimpses of what's going on, but you don't actually get the full thing. And it completely diminishes the full effect of the action and the scope of it, and it completely diminishes any fun to be had with those action scenes. An example of this is one of the first action scenes in the movie taking place in Antarctica. This action scene is dimly lit, there's only a backlight that casts a silhouette of the monsters fighting, and the camera is pretty close up, and you can't really see what's going on. And the camera decides to zoom out where you see these human characters running away from the monsters, and then it cuts to inside of a helicopter, I'm pretty sure, and it's shaking around, it cuts to different people's reactions inside the helicopter, and then it cuts back to these human characters still running, and it zooms past them back to the monsters fighting, and then it cuts back to the humans again, and it just felt so sloppy in execution. And it just in the way that the camera moves around and the choppy editing and the poor lighting, I never felt like I got the full effect of those action scenes. And I know a lot of people will enjoy these action scenes, and if you do, that's good. But for me, the action in this film just did not work. I won't deny that seeing Godzilla enter a scene is pretty damn awesome. Though there was this one time in the film, near the third act, where Godzilla gets a pretty dope introduction, and I was just thinking, that's a pretty dope introduction. And then the director decides to zoom in on Godzilla's face like it's a meme. Like, he just zooms in like this, and it looks like Godzilla is breaking the fourth wall, and it just made me laugh. So besides that, I did like the way that Godzilla got introduced into a couple of scenes, with his roar really hitting hard and just rumbling the entire cinema. And also, there are a handful of cool looking wide shots of the monsters entering a scene or getting ready to battle one another. Like, they're screensaver quality. But that's all that this film has to offer. There's nothing else. The plot is loosely knitted together only by exposition scenes, stupid illogical things, and characters making the dumbest decisions ever. There's no actual progression or fluidity in the plot, and the story is essentially non-existent, as well as the characters. The characters are just boring and one-dimensional, and their only purpose in the film is to blurt out exposition. Like, every single character in this film is a dump machine of exposition, and they randomly have PowerPoint presentations ready for every situation, and it became so laughable. But the human drama in this film is the worst, because they set up this drama between the family in such a boring and rushed way, and they never come back to it. They establish a nonsensical conflict, but they completely forget about it to focus more on the exposition scenes, and it's just so frustrating and annoying. And you can tell that the actors in this film are trying. They really are. But because of how terrible the script is, they come off so dull and laughably bad. And it just sucks so much because all of these actors are great. Vera Farmiga, Millie Bobby Brown, Kyle Chandler, they're great actors. But they're completely wasted in this film. Even the director of this movie, Michael Dougherty, is completely wasted, and he wrote the script. I just don't know what happened. But that's another thing. This movie is being taken seriously. From the acting, to the way that it's directed, and to the way that everything plays out. But the dialogue and certain aspects about the plot are terribly dumb and cheesy. And because they're being so serious, it becomes so laughable sometimes. The unintentional comedy is 10 million times better than the intentional comedy, because the intentional comedy in this film is terribly written, terribly delivered, and they do not work within the seriousness of a scene that the director is trying to portray. And it's like this movie has an identity crisis. Like, it doesn't know if it wants to be serious or dumb fun. And a lot of people keep saying that this movie is dumb fun, but it's actually dumb fun and serious, and tonally, they don't work together. Also, I don't know about anybody else, but I thought that the ending was so abrupt. Like, it ended the Godzilla story, but it didn't end the human character story. Like, what it set up and what the movie leaves on, it still felt like there was a little bit more to go, and it still felt like there was a little bit more resolving. But because Godzilla is king of the monsters, it was just like, well, that's a wrap. Guys, I don't know what else to say about this movie. I'm just depressed at this point. I really wanted this movie to succeed, more than anything. I really did. And what I got was a film that has the laziest writing, poorly delivered lackluster action that is heavily linked together by boring and terrible characters that blurt out exposition every minute. I'm gonna give Godzilla King of the Monsters a D+. Okie dokie, guacamole. Let me know what you guys thought about the movie down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you guys like this video and you want to see more, click subscribe and I'll see you later.